Hey everybody, and welcome to another video. I am Mike B, and today we're going to be doing a really fun one, kind of a hands-on, and one of those things that you didn't know you wanted to know. I was talking with my friend Brian last night, and we were talking about the weather up here in the Nordwoods of Wisconsin. He's from New England, and they're just getting rain lately. And I said, yeah, we've been getting dumped down with snow, and we've got a Christmas blizzard on its way. And he and I started talking about the Battle of the Bulge, because there's two things that everybody knows about World War II. It's D-Day, the one that happened on June 6, 1944, and the Battle of the Bulge. Most other people, that's like the extent of their knowledge. So it's one of the biggest and most popular and famously researched battles of the Second World War. And since I've got the conditions that can replicate that, which is very snowy and it's actually very cold right now, I figured we'd talk about a topic, and that is, how do you camouflage things in the winter? The uniform, the 1941 field jacket, and you had the 1943 uniform that was just starting to come out at the end of 44 and really be issued to a lot of units, but they're khaki and olive drab rather, and they don't really blend in well with snow, especially the M1 helmet. Now, the Germans had the same issue with their uniforms, with their Feldgrau uniforms and some later camouflage ones, but it's still really dark. So they would just wear plain over white suits, and they would also whitewash their helmets. Now, how did all these guys do this stuff, and how do you do tanks? How do you do vehicles in general, artillery, pieces like that? How do you camouflage all this stuff? Well, you paint it, right? Well, a couple of reasons why they didn't want to paint it. One, paint doesn't do well in the really freezing temperatures to apply it. It doesn't stick well. It has issues with the consistency and the viscosity. And the bigger issue is, if you're going down a highway or you're in an area where there's a lot of mud, and you're driving an all-white vehicle, it's not really that great. Now, how do you get something to become whitewashed and blend in with the surroundings of the snow and take on the kind of environment, such as, maybe it's going to rain today, maybe it's a little bit warmer, maybe everything's melting. There was a solution that was obviously done in the field, and I don't know how many other places, other nations use this method, but this is a particularly American one. And Brian sent me this. It's from a memoir, I believe, that says, basically, they had this problem that I just laid out, and they were trying to come up with a solution, and it became 6 parts, basically, to make a 10-gallon batch, probably for a tank or something like that. You don't really need a lot for personal gear. But for a 10-gallon batch, you're going to have 6 gallons of lime, which was used for deceased bodies and other purposes, but it was pretty readily available. So you're going to take 6 gallons of lime, or 6 parts of lime, 4 parts of water, and then a half part of salt. Now, I don't know if the salt strengthens the bond between the lime and the water to the surface that you put it on, or why, who knows. I actually don't know the reasoning for that, but that's part of the original recipe. So I have here about 3 pounds of lime. This stuff is pretty cool, and it's got some texture to it. It's not the really fine stuff. I got 3 pounds of lime. We've got some water. We're going to kind of mess around with the consistency and try to get about 4 parts out of 10, 4 parts to 6 parts lime. We're going to mess with that a little bit. I'm sure they didn't have a measuring cup out in the field, and I'm also not using period correct devices. I was going to mix it up in another steel pot, but I don't want to deal with that. So this mix, you got some regular salt here. This mix was good for a couple different reasons. One, it was readily available. It was cheaper. Lime is very cheap, so is water. You got water everywhere. And salt, if you can find it, it's also very cheap and plentiful. Now, the reason they would use this is because it's not a permanent coat of paint. So if you've got an olive drab or olive green piece of equipment, like a tank, a truck, a half-track, a piece of artillery, a helmet, I don't know if they actually did weapons with this because it kind of get grody. You would apply this, and if need be, if all of a sudden the snow is gone one day and it's really warm out, like sometimes it can happen in Europe, you would be able to scrub this coating off without having to go and chip it off or repaint over it. So that was a really good solution. And if you're driving on a road and there's mud kicking up and stuff, it'll wash it off, and the vehicle will actually blend in better with the road that doesn't have a lot of snow on it. So this became a very popularly used camouflage technique for personal equipment, crew equipment, unit equipment, and stuff like that during the Battle of the Bulge. And since it's mid-December, and like I said, so I'll be demonstrating. First of all, you saw the clips of me out in the woods with the non-painted helmet, just the standard uniform. It's pretty dark. Now, besides getting like sheets and stuff that they would get, there's not always, you can't just go into people's houses and grab sheets and expect them not to put up a fuss, especially when sheets were in short supply. You see some pictures of doilies on their helmets, just anything to camouflage. Now, whitewash helmets were used by most nations during a winter time situation. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna actually mix this stuff up. We're gonna paint the helmet in here, in the inside where it's nice and warm, because again, it's about 0 outside right now, and they might have mixed it up in the heat and then brought it out to the cold, but who knows? We're gonna mix it up in here because I don't really want to deal with having to be out there and freezing and getting water in my hands and it freezing out there. But what we're gonna do is after we mix up this paint the helmet, which I'm gonna show you next, we're gonna go outside and see how just that little bit can actually make a little bit of a difference as far as personal camouflage. So here we go. All right, so like I said, we've got the lime right here. I'm just gonna mix everything in here, the water and salt. And then I'm also gonna take this helmet apart and get the chin strap off so we don't paint over those things, even though they might have. I personally don't want to on this particular helmet. So it's an original shell, nice fixed loop, early to mid-war, and nice replica of a St. Clair low pressure helmet liner, which is pretty cool. J. Murray, 1944, of course. We'll always plug him. Anyway, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go over this shell on the outside after we get this mixed up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually just gonna add water. And we're gonna add some salt. You can see the bubbles coming out of there, pretty cool. Just a little bit of salt. Measuring very carefully, of course. We're gonna take the handle of the paintbrush. I'm gonna stir this bad boy up. So, this is a really easy way. Yeah, okay, I see. So it's kind of turning into a really thin, oh, as we just started from the cup that I used to. Lime in here. Yeah, so it's kind of a slurry. It's like a thin paint. We'll see how this works. I'm just trying to get it all as saturated as possible. I also want to mention it's not a totally white color. It's kind of an off-white, almost gray, but still a lot better than this olive drab. So now we're just going to take this paintbrush and see how this works, if it works. I do have a trash can right here, or I'm sorry, a trash bag underneath everything, so I'm not dripping on the table. Yeah. So maybe I've made it a little bit too thin. But it actually appears to be sticking a little bit to the helmet itself. Yeah, I think I just made it a little bit too thin. All right, while we let this bad boy dry on the first coat, I'm actually gonna go out, I'm gonna pour some of this water out and get some more lime to make it a little bit thicker because I think I added too much water. Definitely should have measured, but oh well, we'll let this guy dry and come back and throw another coat on. Okay, so it's been about a half hour and this has dried. And it's actually pretty cool. It brightened up a little bit, but it's still not white enough to my liking. This would probably work in a pinch, but I'm gonna go ahead and add some more lime to this mixture. Kind of make it into a thin paste. There, let's see if that kind of thickens it up a bit. I'm definitely thinking I should have gotten the yard lime, but they probably would have had this stuff with all the rocks and whatever. Who knows? All right, I'm just gonna put the rest of this in here. Whoops. Well, I guess not whoops, but all right. So now this is getting to be a little bit thicker. Yeah. Yep, it's noticeably thicker now. So maybe I definitely think I had the ratio off. Yeah, it's sticking to the brush a lot better. Yep, so Now we're gonna put on a coat and see how this does. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. Yep, this is gonna turn out really good, so. Yeah, nice. Kind of touching it up. All right, that is really cool. See how that's a lot better? Yeah, I just definitely had the ratio off, but it's good because this stuff's really cheap. It's, you know, $4 for 50 pounds, and water is very cheap where I'm at. Now we'll let this dry for about half hour, 45 minutes, and then we'll go check it out outside. I'm sure this is gonna be a lot better than it was before. So, God, it's gonna be so cool. So as you can see, this stuff actually sticks pretty well, and it looks really cool. The way it's drying, it kind of has a little bit of the olive drab from underneath coming through, but it's still pretty good. Now, if you check out this video, you can see that, like, although it's kind of an off-white color, it's not true white like snow, it still blends in very well with the surroundings, and it's a hell of a lot better than having a contrasting color like olive drab on the top of your head. So you can see this as I'm walking through the snow. It actually will give you an extra advantage of taking a couple more seconds to spot. Now, if you did this with vehicles too that are stationary, you do this with tents apparently they were doing, it's really cool. Now, this does look like just mud at first, but it's a lot more white. Lime is a lot more white than typical dirt and mud is, even in Europe at that time. So it does make sense that although it's slightly darker than the snow, it kind of looks like dirty snow. Not everything's going to be nice and fancy white like you saw in, you know, my little recreation of the Battle of the Bulge. But, you know, you still get the idea. So this is a really cool thing that I didn't even know about until last night when we were talking. It's just fun with having friends that are nerds like myself, is you always learn something. And he sent me this, and he said, you should do a video on that, because I don't think anybody else has. So that's about all I've got. So you can see this is drying really nice, and it gets a little bit lighter as it dries, so that's even going to be better. I'm looking at this in the screen, and so I'm sorry I'm not looking into the camera. But yeah, so this is the kind of stuff, just a personal camouflage technique that would have been used during the Battle of the Bulge by US and I'm sure other forces. The Germans probably did this, the other allies, the British Canadians and all that stuff would have probably done the same thing with their gear if they had access to these three simple and common ingredients. So anyway, thanks again, Brian. I hope you're watching this for the idea. And this is actually really cool. I'm going to let this kind of sit, and then maybe in the spring we'll do a follow-up and show how easy it is to actually get this stuff off of here and back to the green instead of having to repaint or chip off old paint. So thanks a lot for the idea and the actual recipe, even though you can just wing it. But you know, everybody's got to have their recipe, just like everything else. But anyway, so if you found this video interesting or whatever, throw it down in the comments. If you got any questions, I'll try to answer them. It's pretty straightforward. I decided to try this old kind of technique, and it worked fairly well, considering you know what this started out with, and it's pretty cool. I like it. It's all natural, which is nice as well. So yeah, if you got any questions, throw them down in the comments. I'll try to answer them. It should be pretty straightforward. If you like this kind of content, also let me know, because I'll keep making it. Weird, stupid little fun facts that I find fascinating, and you know, my friends and I talk about. It can probably be entertaining and, you know, also useful for if you decide that you want to live up here and camouflage cool stuff like this, or you're doing a living history impression or whatever. So things like that. And if you want to help support my channel financially so I can get cool stuff like this, even though the lime wasn't that expensive, the helmet is an original. These things cost money, and it's kind of cool to use them as visual aids to talk about things and teach you about things. So if you want to become a Patreon supporter or YouTube channel member, that's an awesome way to support me financially so I can afford to make cool videos like this. $5 a month or more on either method of support gets into my Discord server, which is really cool. There's a lot of people on there. I'm going to actually probably talk to them about this in a little bit. After I edit this video and get it uploading, I'm going to talk in my Discord like I do pretty much every day. So there's an incentive too. If you want to support me but you can't do it financially, I totally understand that. Been there, done that. And you know, you just know how to do it. Like the video, thumbs up, share this out. That's a great way to support any of your favorite content creators. Share the video out if you thought it was cool. And yeah, just that kind of stuff. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you on the next video.